COVID in Colorado's trying to get up off the map, trying to make a fourth wave happen. Let's look at how it would be far different than the first three. The biggest event for small brewers is not coming to Colorado again this year. I ask you to respect my privacy at this difficult time. The people drawing Colorado's new congressional lines vote to get rid of their leader, who stands by the election conspiracy theories he shared, and he blames this program for telling the public. And there are about 4,000 World War II vets left in this state. When one passed away, his friends could not handle the idea that he wouldn't have his honors. A story of patriotism and perseverance. Next. It's unmistakable when you look at the COVID numbers in Colorado right now. Something is clearly happening. We can't seem to cut down on hospitalizations. Positivity rate has increased. Cases are coming up, although Colorado's COVID cases are much more manageable than cases in other parts of the country. The pandemic is clearly offering some pushback right as we make real progress on vaccinations. Our Steve Steger looks at how a potential fourth wave of cases would be quite different.
For the first time since the end of January, Colorado's average positivity rate for COVID-19 topped 5% on Sunday. Public health experts want to see that number stay at or below 5%.
There has been a decrease in testing, so you might see a little skewing of that.
Infectious disease expert Dr. Michelle Barron with UC Health says it's too early to tell if the fourth wave hitting other parts of the country will impact Colorado.
I think we're certainly at risk for entering a fourth wave. I believe we're kind of in a race right now between getting enough people vaccinated, fully vaccinated and protected, and the rise of the variants that are probably contributing to this increasing spread of infection.
Should a wave hit here, it will look quite different than the other spikes we've seen, she says. A lot has changed in a year. We know more about the virus now, and vaccinations are both preventing infection for some and making the virus less dangerous for others.
If you just look at our hospitalizations and you compare January even to March, much less from the beginning of this, the people that are being hospitalized now tend to be younger.
Barron says the duration of people staying in the hospital has also decreased, thanks in part to the fact that we know how to treat COVID better than we did in the early days. She says, should there be another wave of COVID, it could help us better understand how vaccines work.
It'll be really interesting at some point to correlate, if we do have another wave of this, being able to correlate it between the amount of vaccination that did or did not occur and the number of infections and hospitalizations that happened.
Now, I also asked Barron what data we should be focusing on. She says in this case, a wave will mostly be reflected in case rate and positivity, and that looking at hospitalization won't be as valuable of a tool as it used to be. Vaccines make COVID cases less severe, and of course, if there is a spike in hospitalizations, Kyle, it's something we should be awfully serious about.
I think that's vital to know what are the metrics that we should be looking at, and good perspective to have knowing that the most vulnerable are now protected.
Absolutely, and that is going to be the story moving forward. The concern is with the variants, and that might potentially cause this fourth wave if it does indeed happen here, and the questions of whether or not the vaccine is as effective on those variants.
All right, Steve Steger, who had quite the makeover at his place. It looks great, Steve. Thank you. I want to give you a look at the latest numbers from today. I told you they're not fantastic. 351 hospitalizations now, up 27 patients from the day before, up 24 patients from this time last week. Our upward trend on positivity is now clear to see on the graph, 7.6% yesterday. Our 7-day average has now climbed to 5.2%. That's significant because public health experts don't like to see it over 5. That suggests that the virus is spreading more widely in the community. Now the good news, the vaccines, more than 19% of our state's population has completed the vaccination process. That's more than 1.1 million of our neighbors. 737,000 Coloradans are waiting on a second dose. And again, 20% of the state can't get vaccines because they're too young. We'll add that gray part back to the pie chart again tomorrow. Colorado's independent commission that's redrawing congressional districts is no longer led by a man who pushed election rigging conspiracy theories. Republican Commissioner Danny Moore stood by those election conspiracy theories today as he was unanimously stripped of his role leading the group. Today, Moore blamed 9 News and me for telling you about his social media posts. His fellow commissioners didn't buy it. Here's politics guy Marshall Zellinger.
I move that we hold a vote on the removal of Commissioner Moore as the chair of our commission.
This commission that will redraw the state's congressional districts likely should only make news when they have a new map.
Commissioner Musa.
Today, they removed the person they originally picked as chairman. This follows our report last week on Republican Danny Moore's social media posts about election fraud.
Had I known that you held this belief with respect to the election having been stolen, I would not have supported your candidacy for chairman of this commission.
They voted 11-0 to strip Moore as chairman. Moore himself abstained. He never apologized or took back his comments like the one we showed you, where he questioned mail-in ballots. Once you hand them over, you lose any voice you thought you had.
Will we fall into a never-ending cycle of having to judge each commissioner on comments or posts they made that has nothing to do with the work before us?
He stood by his election fraud comments and suggested bringing them up is racist.
I want to be perfectly clear that your race is not an issue in this discussion.
I agree with Commissioner Schell. This has nothing to do with the color of anyone's skin in terms of how we operate as a commission.
There are 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats, and 4 unaffiliated voters on this commission. Half of them, including Moore, were chosen by applying and then getting picked in a random bingo ball-like drawing. They are responsible for determining the new boundaries for congressional districts before the 2022 election. Until this year, partisan lawmakers were responsible for drawing the maps. Moore is no longer head of the commission, just a commissioner, but he was told his viewpoint is important, in part because of his social media posts.
Whether we like it or not, there are a large number of people, maybe it's 1 million, maybe it's 2 million people in the state of Colorado, who have some of the same questions about the election that Commissioner Moore voiced. They need to feel that their views are represented on this commission.
That Commissioner Bill Leone followed that by saying he himself disagrees with Moore's position. Bottom line, Moore remains on the commission, and the commission will still draw the new boundaries for the congressional districts. Kyle.
Marshall, it was real clear today that with this being the first time Colorado has used this process, the commissioners want people to trust their work, and that's why they were ticked about this.
That's the overriding theme from the 90-minute discussion about whether or not he should still be chair. The thought process was like the public put us in place through amendments Y and Z a couple of years ago, and this is not necessarily the discussion they wanted to be watching on TV. They just want to see a nonpartisan way of deciding how politicians get decided in the future, depending on where I live. Is it going to be in this district or that district? We don't need lawmakers doing that. We need this independent group, and we should be focusing on that and not politics.
Politics, imagine. Marshall, thank you. Colorado's victims advocates across the state have a small emergency fund through a nonprofit that they can use to help their crime victims with immediate expenses that are not covered by other victims assistance funds, or if those funds would be too slow in arriving to pay for things like a card for groceries or to repair property damage. You basically doubled the size of that victim assistance fund through your Word of Thanks microgiving campaign last week. You poured in another $29,000 in change into what was a $30,000 fund through the nonprofit Colorado Organization for Victim Assistance. Just want to say thank you. Your generosity is going to mean immediate help for Coloradans who are just trying to put their lives back together after they become a victim of crime. He earned full military honors for his final goodbye some 75 years ago.
It saddened me to know that they weren't going to do anything or let anything happen.
His poker buddies were not about to let him leave without a proper salute. And the complex feelings that come with landing a vaccine appointment. I found one, and I'm not sure how to feel about that. Side effects of booking a vaccine appointment include swelling emotions like overwhelming joy and a feeling of guilt. I experienced both side effects around 2:30 a.m. Saturday when I went online and found a bunch of open vaccine appointments for the general public through CVS. Scheduled myself one, then I shared the link online where 94 of you who are also up late told me that you use that same link to get your own appointment. And still, I'm uneasy knowing that there are Coloradans who want and need the vaccine who don't have appointments yet. You know, the question people always ask is, how'd you get an appointment? The short, honest answer is checking websites late at night. The long, honest answer is because I have fast broadband at my home, because I have a car to drive to the appointment, because I have childcare that allows me to go, because I have access to information about the vaccines and I have the time to research, because I don't have a well-founded distrust of the healthcare system based on how generations of my family have been treated. That's how I got a vaccine appointment. And that's why we'll keep talking about vaccine equity and access here. Why our Word of Thanks microgiving project for this next week will again focus on how we can help get the vaccine to our neighbors who need and want it, so that more Coloradans can experience the side effect of joy that comes from getting a vaccine appointment. Curious as a cat, they say, ignoring that some cats don't seem all that curious at all, and the cases of other cats are most curious indeed, like that of the cat in our next question. What happened to that cat that ran through Coors Field Friday night? That cat came out looking pretty fierce, bottom of the eighth, sprinted right across the outfield, hung out with Cody Bellinger for a while. He's a cat guy, you could just kind of tell from looking at him. And then Coors Field employee was able to corner the cat and carry it off the field. And now come the questions. Are you prepared for a very unsatisfying answer? The Coors Field cat is missing. Rocky's spokesperson says the cat is one of many feral cats that live at the park, probably getting fat off the mice that got fat off our dropped Cracker Jacks. Anyway, the employee who caught the cat planned to release it outside the park to resume its free-range lifestyle, but the Rockies say the cat got loose somewhere inside the stadium. So we may see it again yet. I should keep talking here. Hey, I got all choked up just thinking about this. I hate to tell you, but COVID is canceling Colorado's biggest party, second year in a row. Great American Beer Festival. Tens of thousands of craft beer drinkers packed into the convention center. They are not going to attempt to make a go of it this fall. The Brewers Association out of Boulder is going to live stream its awards ceremony for the best American craft beer September 10th, but no big party. How am I coping? Kind of you to ask. Good. It's all good. I mean, at this point, it's kind of tough to picture being back in that packed crowd, everybody all trunk to tail in there. I mean, hopefully by this fall, when GABF season rolls around, things will be in great shape with the pandemic and all of us will be real bummed that it's not happening. And that, I guess, would be a really good problem to have.
My dad was a World War II vet. I've always been proud to say that.
That pride has been passed down generation to generation. There are so few World War II vets left to honor. Let's hope they all get the send-off John Henderson did. That's next. John Henderson was one of Colorado's final 5,000 living World War II veterans. He served in the Navy in the 40s. When a mortuary in Longmont told John's family that full military honors for his service could not happen because of the pandemic, his family called up John's poker buddies at Legion Post 22 in North Glen.
You know, he was so humble while he was alive and never really talked about it.
My dad was a World War II vet. I've always been proud to say that.
Call it a collage of his life.
Pretty much sums up his life. He was in the Navy. He was in electric welding and a machine gunner. It was just an honor that, yeah, my dad's a World War II vet. He was a great dad. I mean, he really was. I mean, he's always been really good to us. And
as far as father-in-law, I couldn't ask for a better father-in-law.
He loved poker. He would go almost every single day and play poker.
He made me come over to play poker with him. And I sat down there and they were running through them cards like it was water through a faucet. Holy moly, these guys play fast.
I met him at a poker table. We used to play, I would say, 5 times a week. You would just know he was there by all the smiles that would just start forming around at the table.
It was Sunday afternoon at 12:28. He was hardly breathing. And I said, I need to call the nurse. And I stepped out to call the nurse, and he passed while I was on the phone. At the mortuary, they told us that they couldn't do full honors because the Legion didn't do them up there.
No color guard, no 21 gun salute, no taps, nothing.
They deserve
the full honor.
Full honor. And
when I talked to Jesse last night, he's like, we're not having that.
And I just didn't feel that was right.
Good afternoon.
I called in a couple favors and got a hold of one of my buddies who is a member of the American Legion, Post 22. And now they're having full military funeral services.
This is what he wanted. He didn't want to be cremated. He didn't want to be burned. For us to be able to have this full service, the viewing, the service, the graveyard, and then the honoring on top of that is just the cherry on the top.
You can see how much it meant to them. We appreciate John's family and friends for being willing to share their story with us through the lens of our photojournalist, Foster Gaines. It's a sign that the disturbing sounds you hear from coming off the trail are nothing to be concerned about. That and your feedback next. It's a sign that the screaming you hear near the trail is perfectly normal and nothing to be alarmed about. Pardon me. Jenny was hiking at Lair of the Bear Park in Jefferson County Saturday when she came across this note taped to the trail sign. Wilderness medical training in progress. It warns you may hear screaming. Is it just me? I would like a slightly more official looking sign than that before I just disregard the shrieking in the woods. You know what I mean? Like don't write it in all caps on notebook paper. You know what I mean? Like put a county seal on it. Get the thing notarized. Because that sign looks like what you would put up if you were doing crimes and you wanted to get away with it. Does anybody know about this? Were you involved in this training? Does this handwriting look familiar? Email next at 9news.com. Get our attention with the hashtag HeyNext. Jennifer says, check, check, and check. I experience all the same emotions when getting a vaccine appointment. Jennifer says, grateful, hopeful, and guilty. Miranda says, thank you for what you said was your long answer on how you got a vaccine appointment. She says, brought tears to my eyes. Yeah, I just think we can't reduce it to this idea that it's just a competition of fast fingers on websites, because that ignores all the structural issues. And it's why we're going to do more work together on vaccine equity this week.